The answer to life, the universe, and everything? Well, that's 4242 DJ Doug, of course. I'm sorry, what was the question again? Running a business is hard. Being a business leader is even harder. The Nice Guys bring in top industry pros to help your business prosper in a tough world. Get real advice from real people to get you real results today. Now it's time for the Nice Guys on Business. Here's your hosts, Doug Sandler and Strickland Bonner.
All right, so Nice Guy community, Richard Fletcher, he is an online coach who's helped people to get an extra $20,000 out of their business ultra fast using a combination of ingenious positioning and clever copywriting. Let's put him to the test today and see how he can help our unique market of entrepreneurs using his magic sauce. Richard, welcome to the Nice Guys on Business podcast.
Hey, Doug, thanks for having me on. I am excited to be here.
I am happy to have you here. And normally, if this was a Friday episode that it was just me and Strick that were shooting the shit, we would talk about magic sauce and it would be a whole different thing. But today, you bring magic sauce to the airwaves. So maybe just share a little bit about what magic sauce really is to you, and then we'll talk about your experience and how you got here today.
Yeah, I mean, I never intended to be a business coach. I've done all kinds of online marketing for years and years. I mean, I did my first online business like 2005, and then I was a dating coach for a while. And I was just seeing all of the stuff that people were posting on Facebook. Like, I think most of us are on Facebook, and we've got, other coaches, business people on our feeds. And I was just feeling like, this was around 2017, 2018. I was feeling like everything I was seeing was exactly the same, and even much more so today. But even back then, I was feeling like this. And I just felt like every now and then I would see something when I'm like, that's really good from someone. That stands out. I'm like, I don't know what it is that grabs me, but I really like it. Mm-hmm. And I felt like that's the magic sauce. It's like when somebody's doing essentially the same thing as everybody else, a fitness coach, a business coach, a relationship coach, whatever, essentially, you're selling bars at Mars bars or something like that, but you do it in a way where people want to come to your shop. It's like, that's the magic sauce. Why does somebody want to come and buy it from you?
Well, okay, so let's talk about that for a moment. There's got to be a certain unique set of characteristics that go into any sales page, landing page, even webinar formula, email campaign, anything at all. There's got to be a magic formula. I appreciate and totally respect the fact that you say, hey, look, everybody is doing things the same way, or there's many people doing the same way, but there are, it's kind of like the stereotypical sales page is stereotypical for a reason. Certain parts of it work. So what are the components that tend to work really well when it comes to a sales page? And what's the stuff that you really can make unique, and add your magic sauce onto it?
Well, that's a tricky question, but one thing I did was last year, for some, I think I was just bored during COVID lockdown, to be honest. And I was pondering, like, what is it? Like, I was looking through some of the old sales letters that have passed, like some of the classic ones. I ended up going through hundreds of them, but I whittled it down to 45 of like the best-selling sales letters, like dating from the present day all the way back. I think the oldest one I went to was like 1909, like some old newspaper ad. And these things sold like loads and loads and loads and loads. And you're talking like when newspaper ads, this was the days before Facebook and YouTube ads where you can like, okay, I want to target men between the age of 30 and 50 who are interested in golf. It's like either everybody reads it in the paper or no one reads it. And it's not like, and if you don't turn to page 17 where the ad is, you don't even see it. At least it's always guaranteed to be delivered on there. So I was looking at these going, for these guys to turn a profit, they had to be good. They had to like really, really stand out. So I started going through all these ads, and I was looking like, what's the same? What's the similarity between them all? And at first there was no similarity. Some of them like went on for hours and hours, like super long pages. Some of them were just a few paragraphs. Some of them were funny. Some of them were just really dry and like business-like. Some of them went straight to the point and just said, buy the thing. Some of them went on a long round about the houses thing. Some told testimonials. I don't know. Some had no testimonials. You get the point. So I don't know. Most people have seen something about like how to write a sales page. It's like, you must have a headline like this, then have a lead, then have bullet points, then have this and that. You must have at least 10 testimonials and this and that. And I was scratching my head for ages until I actually figured out what the damn thing was that ties these things together. And the thing that links them all together is a premise being defined as a thing that the audience needs to believe or the reader needs to believe before they can even consider buying your product. So that's how anyone selling anything, we need to consider that about our audience. So one example, one of the 45 letters, for example, Doug, was one that started. It was written by Agora, so recent-ish, maybe 20 years so. And it was Hidden Dangers of Your Morning Shower. And
now I'm interested.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, you're like, what the hell? What the hell's wrong with my morning shower? It's like the most benign thing ever. Just, hot water. I mean, what's wrong with it? And the product being sold was a shower filter. Now, if they just jumped in direct with the offer saying, shower filter for sale was $79, now $59, how many people are going to read it and buy it? Very few, because the only people interested are going to be the people who were already thinking about buying a shower filter, which is not many people in the population. So they start off by making you curious about what's dangerous about my shower. And it's a universal thing. Most of us, apart from the stinky ones, have a morning shower. So it's like, it's going to make you curious. And then the premise there, before you can buy a shower filter, is there are nasty things in my shower water that I need to avoid. And then you go through that premise, and it turns out there's sub-premises beyond there that you need to prove. Then once you've done that and the person believes there is something wrong with their shower water, then you prove that your product fixes it, boom, you've got the sale. So the way all these different things worked was they were all proving something, but the way they went about proving it was completely different.
All right. Now, okay, so let's take that same premise and let's put it into play with anyone that is in our community right now by asking a general question. Does everyone have a unique selling proposition or a unique something that can trigger that same level of curiosity as that dangers of your shower scenario that you just set up?
I mean, the product, just going back to that a second, that's a great question in itself, but we don't know if that shower filter actually has anything unique about it. There might be 100 shower filters on the market just like it. The point is that it went to an audience that was completely unaware there was a problem and said, hey, I've got the solution. And that audience isn't exactly researching shower filters. You just put the right thing in front of them and goes, all right, okay. So, but to answer your question, which is a very good one, I don't believe everyone has a unique selling proposition. I'd love to sit here and be like, everybody can do it, everyone can do it. But actually, I think especially these days when everybody is super skeptical, especially in the online business niche, like online business coaching, where everyone's bought high ticket programs and been disappointed and been let down and spent, everyone's got a story, spent 20,000, 50,000, 1,000 and I was disappointed. People are super skeptical these days. So if you're sat at home thinking, I'm a bit sick of the corporate job, I'm not a fan of a cubicle, do you know what? I'm going to become an online business coach. No, you probably don't have a unique selling proposition because you haven't built up the skill set yet. But if you've built up the skill set over multiple years, there's always an angle. There's always something that you do where your method of doing it allows people to get the result, or allows maybe a certain subsection of the market to get the result. It might be that you connect with women over 45 for whatever reason, because they just get what you're talking about, the language you use, but 20-year-old men will be like, what the hell are you on about?
All right, so let's continue that thought process because it's really interesting. Will this work, magic sauce or whatever we want to call it? Will this work for someone that's brand new in business, as well as it will work for somebody that is established and has maybe something a little bit more unique or something that they can hang their hat on and say, this is my either unique selling proposition or this is the stuff that I know is in my zone of genius or my magic? Can it work for the beginner also?
It can, absolutely, but you have to find either a creative or some kind of reason for someone to choose you. Now, sometimes in the case of a beginner, it might be just a case of I'm cheaper than everybody else because I'm a beginner and I'm trying to get the experience. Would you like to go with me? Like, for example, I've seen. Here's an example. Last year, might have been the year before, I forget. I was looking for a graphic designer. And I posted on my Facebook feed, I'm looking for someone to do my Instagram carousels for me. And loads of people messaged back. And as you'll always see in the comments, people were tagging people and stuff, just like random names. And I'm like, who is this person? But one guy went and looked at one of my Facebook posts. He then went away and spent probably an hour building a carousel, literally built 10 images for me, sent them to me and said, here's how you would use them. Here's how it would look on your feed. Buy what you can have this for free. But if you like him, and I'd also have a chat. And I ended up employing him because he was the only one who did that. And I really liked the results of what he did. So in a sense, there may have been like 100 other people who could have done that job, but he demonstrated it. he proved it better than the others. So sometimes it's a case of proof. You might be new, but you might have the skills and be able to prove it better than others, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. And I think about, as I go back and look at the people that have pitched me to be on this show, not with present company, notwithstanding that idea, but the people that I have opened the gate to are the people that have approached me and saying, I'm interested in being on the Nice Guys on Business. They haven't puked their product. They haven't like dumped all this bio and information on me. But what they did was they created a review of the show. And they sent me the review unsolicited for me, and we've had as our quote unquote our rules, and I think that you did the rules, so you're there. What they did as our rules is they gave us, we created these rules that say one of the characteristics of the rules is you have to do a review of the show, and we've had that for years as a part of our show. And I could tell you in the last 7 years since we've been doing this show, unsolicited, I've probably gotten less than 10 people to review the show just without me saying, hey, one of the rules of the show is you have to review it. They just send it to me. They have like a free pass to come on the show. And it's like, all right, well, that person did something extremely unique. And I can imagine that guy that did the sample work for you. It's like, you didn't ask him to do the sample work. He did it for you. He didn't come to you and say, here's the sample work. If you want to keep it, or if you want the watermark removed, I'm going to charge you $100 for it. Basically,
Exactly.
Here's a sample of my work. You go ahead and enjoy it. And if I can help you in the future, I'd be happy to support it. And that was very unique of him, right?
Another example. Now, I'm not a beginner, but in my market, business coaching, probably as competitive as any other market, at least. It's really, really hard to stand out these days when everybody's bought into the high ticket program thing, which, I believe in that too. But when your only product is $5,000 plus, it's really hard to get people to trust you, because it's like, when that first point of spending money is $5K plus, it takes a lot to get there. Yeah. So I was thinking recently, what are ways that I can give people a sample of what I do without it being, I'll coach you for months in the hope that you give me some money back. So a couple of weeks ago, I did a post where I said, who would like a 1 to 2 minute Loom video profile review, a critique of your profile, and I'll talk about how well you're doing in terms of promoting and selling your product or your service on your Facebook profile. I'll be as nice as possible. I won't rip you to pieces, but I'll give you some idea of how you can make some more sales if possible, or I'll tell you a brilliant job. Who would be interested? And 12 people actually responded below, which is not loads of comments, but 12 people said, yeah, go on, let's give this a go. So I did the profile review. So it's not like I'm taking hours and hours doing it. So I did the profile review, probably averaged about 5 minutes rather than 2. And I think 2 of them ended up becoming paying clients as a result. Great. Because of the insight that I was able to provide, because I knew that once somebody heard me, giving them insight on their specific thing and talking about how to sell their product rather than the high level, here's how a human being would do it in general for any niche. Suddenly they go, or niche, as you would probably say in the US.
No, I like niche. That's good. Niche is good too. Me and Strick, that's a constant argument for the two of us. What is it, niche or niche?
Yeah. I still don't know, but I'm sticking with niche. Yes. Suddenly, like, some of them were like, okay, I get it now. Like, I liked your post beforehand, but now I get how you can help me. And suddenly that link was made. Same with the graphic designer me. I get how you can help me. I don't really care about everybody else. Okay, let's talk. So I think people listen to this who are maybe struggling to get clients, whether they're new or not, can think, are there ways that I can just give somebody a taster of what I'm doing without it being, I'm giving up hours and hours of my time?
All right. I want to talk about your background in this, some of maybe a case study or maybe even an example or two. I think I checked out a couple of examples you have. And again, Nice Guy community, you'll be able to relate to this if you're a coffee lover. Imagine a $1,000 bag of coffee. And if you've ever been married, you've also hired a wedding photographer. If you've done that, a $15,000 wedding photographer. And these are two stories that Richard will share with us in the upcoming moments. In addition, he's got this unbelievable deal that he's going to offer just to our Nice Guy community for those of you that are listening and checking out this episode. I'll tell you how to take advantage of this deal that will cost you less than $27 if you're at all interested in some of the stuff that Richard shares in the story. So give me a little bit of your background, Richard, so those in our community can see you actually do know your shit, and you've done this for a while. And I know you've been in the environment since 2005, as you said, but I've been eating since 2005, but I'm not going to be a chef in a 4-star kitchen. So tell me a little bit about how you've built your business and what advantage there is to working with somebody like you doing what you do.
Well, to be fair, my background is abject failure in online business, which is like, okay, the foundation of everything I've learned up to this point. Is like one screw up after another until you go, okay, I've made all the mistakes. Okay. And suddenly you go, all right, that one worked. I'd like to say,
just so you know, sometimes those are the best people to work with. We have been through as podcast producers and as hosts of our own show. It took us literally 2 years to figure out how to make a cent from our show, and going through every bit of trial and error from our show. Miserable, what I would consider probably a lot of missteps. But since then, we've been able to capitalize, make millions from our podcast. And what's nice about it is that it's not because we're textbook heroes in this. We made every freaking mistake in the book, and we love to share that story. Okay, anyway, so keep going.
Well, what would make you a great coach, which kind of answers the same question about me. What would make you a great coach versus somebody who just set up a podcast, let's say 2 months ago, and went to number one somehow and didn't know how they did it?
It's never
well,
good.
when somebody comes to you and says, do you think this would be a good idea? You can be like, no, that would never work because you've done it and screwed it up.
Yeah, totally right. Totally right. Sorry, I didn't mean to hijack that. So share your story.
No. It's a good point. So, I mean, my first foray into actual business, working myself, was when I came back from like traveling as a backpacker in 2003, and I got roped into doing Herbalife, like MLM, and I ended up with like $3,000 worth of. I got taught in like an idiot. I got taught to buying $3,000 worth of stock because if you buy the extra level of stock, then you get on a super diamond double whatever plan, and you get more commission. So I ended up getting, much higher commission, a much higher percentage of zero. So,
perfect.
So that stock sat in my parents' garage for years, and then eventually I took it to a tip when it went off. But then I started my first website in 2005, which was called The Travel Monkey. If you go on I think it's called the Wayback Machine or whatever I think it's called, you can actually look at that, like the old websites from the past. You can see I designed it all myself. It looks horrendous, but it was all about helping. It was all about kind of like what I knew at the time, was just helping backpackers travel the world.
Yeah.
But my problem at the time was I just put the advice on there and I had no way of monetizing it. Mm-hmm. So I ended up shutting it down. I kind of like look now, but at the time, I think I had some like 1,500 unique visitors a month, and people messaging me going, this is so useful. But I was like, how am I making money from this? I had affiliate links to Amazon backpacks and stuff. And I think I sold one for $80 or whatever and got like $4 commission back. Mm-hmm. I'm like, this ain't paying the bills anytime soon. But if I kept going, who knows? I could have had a forum on it and people talking, who knows? And then I did a site called Bulk Up Fast for skinny guys who wanted to bulk up. And that was when my first into email marketing, where I've got people on an email list. So I've got loads of people on an email list from a YouTube channel. Again, the YouTube channel still exists. I did a video that had like over 100,000 views, and that was in 2008, just completely randomly, not knowing what I was doing. But again, I didn't know how to monetize it, so I short-sightedly shut it down. Now, this was like early days of YouTube as well. It could have been massive now, but I'm like, you don't see these things until later. And I did a whole bunch of other stuff, buying and selling domain names and all kinds of, and all of the get-rich-quick schemes that were in 2008. All of the, sack your boss, magic turnkey system, pulls dollars in the bank while you sleep. I bought all of that shit, all of it.
All right. So how do you progress from that to where you are now, which is obviously being successful at what you do?
Yeah. So beyond that, so as we got into the 2010s, is it called the 2010s or the 10s? I don't even know. I don't even know. It's like, I know where I am when I say the 70s, the 80s, and 90s, but now I'm just lost anyway. And in the 10s, it sounds weird. In the 10s, yeah, I started coaching guys on dating completely by accident. I went to a seminar somewhere, and it was actually in America. And I was just talking about like relationships over lunch with a woman one day. And she was like, just about, the problems guys have connected with women and vice versa. And she's like, you should be teaching this to guys. I was like, really? What? And she's like, they don't know this stuff. I was like, okay. As it happened, she was a business coach, so I had an ulterior motive. But she's like, I could show you how to kind of do this and start your business online. So she did. And I started getting clients. And then about a year after that, I discovered high ticket marketing, which is about 2015. And I'd like, so I set up a 5K course over 2 months. And 5 days after I set that up, someone actually signed up for it, which just blew my mind because no one ever given me that kind of money in one go before. Mm-hmm. Literally, I didn't look back since that point. That was 2014, 15. And then 2018, I started coaching these people on business because I was just in loads of Facebook groups, kind of giving advice out and helping people. People kept saying, your advice is better than the people I'm paying money to. So then people started asking me for help and can I pay you to help me and stuff. So it just kind of happened organically. I was like, oh, well, I guess I'm a business coach now. And at that time, I got married, and I wasn't really interested in talking about kind of dating and stuff so much anymore. I was more interested in online marketing. So I was like, I'll just stop doing that and start doing this. And here we are today. So it's kind of, I never went down that road that people go down. So, oh, there's a lot of money in coaching people to run a business. I'll do it too. Even, I did a marketing course this weekend, so now I'll teach them that. I don't believe, when it comes to marketing, I don't believe in that kind of, where people say, well, if you're one step ahead of your customer, that's enough. In some cases that can work, but I feel like generally you're better to have the experience.
All right, let's talk about the two case studies, I guess, that I had mentioned a little bit earlier,
Yes.
the $1,000 bag of coffee. Let's start there. So tell me a little bit about, I mean, I love coffee, but $1,000, I don't know if I'd pay $1,000 for a cup of coffee, a bag of coffee, or would I?
Well, probably not. Neither would I. Although I got sent a bag of this stuff. Well, it wasn't quite $1,000. I think it was a $200 bag. Which obviously,
fair enough.
Obviously is dirt in comparison, like mud. But yeah, it was very nice. I wouldn't pay $200 for it. It was like slightly nicer than normal coffee. But I guess it's kind of like wine. It's in the perception. I mean, this guy who ran a coffee company in Canada came to me, and we were talking about it. In fact, I was actually on his podcast years ago, and we just talked about this, and we just happened to be talking about it afterwards. It was like, okay, so what would you do to, I think we were actually discussing it on the podcast itself. What would you do to help me sell more coffee? And I was like, what's your most expensive line? He's like, I think we got like $100 bag of coffee. I said, all right, what about this? This is the kind of thing that takes big brass balls, the same as the next story we're coming to. What about if you created $1,000 bag of coffee? It could essentially be the same stuff as $100 bag of coffee. I don't know what goes into coffee. I don't know what makes quality versus not. Do you need to roast it longer? Does it need to be higher up the slopes of Ethiopia? I don't know, but whatever makes it higher quality. And then you advertise it as this is the most expensive coffee money can buy. If it's already $1,000 bag, let's make it $2,000. then we start getting in touch with influencers, people who would like this kind of shit, and start sending them this stuff and say, can I send you this stuff? And before you know it, you're going to get celebrities who are like, hey, George Clooney, do you think he might like to show off with like his $2,000 bag of coffee? These are the people who, like, when people come around, you're like, oh my God, you'll never guess what I've just got hold of. This is the most expensive coffee in the world. Like in London, I think they've got, the £100 burger or whatever it is.
Yep.
All of these kind of things, £50 ice cream, however much these things cost, ridiculous prices that no sane person would pay. But to another person, it's a sign of quality, but also a status symbol. Mm-hmm. It's like, I can afford this and I've got it and I'm exclusive. I can give you a cup of this coffee. Nobody else can do that in the home. They'll give you, Nescafe or whatever crap. I'll give you this stuff. So there's always a market for that. And when you're selling it $1,000, well, we don't need to sell it in supermarkets. We don't need to sell it to everybody, just a few. So the lesson there was that in every market, there's what I call the Gucci, the Valentino customer, or, Balenciaga, whatever the highest one is. There's always that customer that goes, not only am I interested and willing to pay a higher price, I actually want to, and I will not pay lower.
Is there a secret, or is there a process that gets you to, what product, what service, where's the limit to that? Or maybe there is no limit. If I sell podcast production, let's just say for the sake of argument that if it's the race to the bottom and I'm looking for the cheapest podcast production out there, I can probably find $5 an episode to edit a podcast episode. Now, we are not a $5 an episode production company, but we are not a $2,500 per episode production company. Could I advertise, in theory, a $2,500 most expensive podcast production per episode service and get business with it?
You could. Now, I caveat this with, I know about as much as the podcast production market as you just told me. So in terms of pricing competition, but you have to reverse engineer it. Instead of saying, well, could I get $2,500? What about $10,000? What about $1 million? You go, well, who would want that? Who would want the most premium service? So then you have to say, well, if it was the most premium service available, am I capable of providing that? Or is there some company out there that's like way, pimp my podcast or whatever? It's like way in advance. They've got just like the budget to be able to do that. And you're sat at home kind of doing it yourself, and you've got a VA and you just can't really do it. You're probably not going to be able to manage it. But if you actually are able to sit there and go, do you know what? How we actually produce a podcast is way in excess of anybody else in terms of the end sound quality and I don't know, whatever else. In
Understood.
terms of
Understood.
the smoothness, all of that stuff. I don't know, but how we do it is in excess of that. Well, who would pay that kind of money? It would be people with huge podcasts, and Joe Rogan, perhaps. I bet he would pay $2,500 an episode. Probably pays more.
Yeah, I'd have to elbow out of the way Spotify.
Exactly.
In order to
Exactly. That's where the problem lies. But so then you go, okay, Joe Rogan's a bit high for me. What's the level below that? And you keep on going levels below that until you get to somewhere you go, do you know what? I could have access to this person, or I know someone who knows that, or I reckon I could have a way into that. A lot of these people who are, celebrity-ish, you can reach them on Instagram because you can just DM direct and find them. And
does it always involve an influencer helping you do the marketing for this, giving away a product or service? Does it always involve that, or is that just one of the examples of some of the ways that make this happen?
It's one of the examples. It's one of the ways, especially if you're dealing with something extremely expensive. But no, I mean, in the case of the wedding photographer, which we'll come to now, that involve that. I wouldn't even count myself as like the most leading expert ever in getting these premium things out, but I've just done a few of them before because people came to me and I was like, why don't you just introduce this? This makes sense. Mm-hmm. Generally, I help people sell their courses between like 5 and 10K and, sell a lot of them, which in some cases it's harder because there's more competition.
Well, and I love that is kind of the zone of genius that you work within, because that's probably more the case than it would be having the $15,000 wedding photographer or the $1,000 bag of coffee. We have probably an extreme amount of people that are in our community that sell a premium level service. They would love to be able to figure out. For example, we have a product or service that's in that $5,000 to $10,000 range for doing it at one-on-one. And for us, it would be great to be able to say, all right, let's create an environment where we have more leads or more enticing leads. I know what we do well. We build relationships. We service extremely well. What we don't do well, at least from our perspective, is the marketing aspect of what we do. So we know our weakness is in the marketing. It's in building that sales page. It's in creating an offer that is ultra enticing. And I know that that's a part of the problem of many people that are in our community as well. So what would you suggest as a first step for someone like that's in our community? Obviously, to hop onto this, $27 or $17 program is great. But where do they actually start? Like, what's it look like?
Well, I mean, if I was actually sitting and asking, since talking to you about you're talking about your offer, if I was asking you about your offer, the first place I'd be interested to look is, first of all, obviously, I'd want to know, what is the offer? What are you how much does it cost? How does it look like? What do I get at the end of it? Mm-hmm. In terms of like, this is a thing I can hold or whatever, I've got a produced podcast. How does that look? And what does my business get as a result? So, I'm not getting a podcast. What's the results of a podcast? The results of a podcast are presumably more credibility, more reach, more sales for my stuff. Maybe people come on my podcast and then maybe buy my stuff as a result of being on there. I don't know. But I would then look and go, well, okay, if that's the results of being on a podcast, how do you do that better than somebody else who might do it for? I actually paid a podcast guy like $1,000 to teach me how to do podcasts last year, and it was okay, but I felt a bit like could have been better. Like the information for me was a bit generic, I don't really feel like he sat down, and even though he sat down with me, I don't really told me, understood my business and really said, this is how you need to do it and how you're going to stand out. It felt a bit, okay, you've got it, off you go now. I didn't feel that supported. Maybe you would do a better job with that. It seems to me from where you were talking just then, Doug, that like you're doing loads of good stuff, and you have more expertise than the majority of your competition. And if somebody was to sit down with you, like I have so many clients who come to me where they say, people only really get the value of what I do after they've signed up. And then they've done 1 or 2 sessions with me. I feel like you might be one of them.
Yeah, totally right. It's like, by the time somebody says no to us, let's say, if they're a no, they don't realize what they have just said no to, because the people that really get, of course, the people that get huge benefit are the ones that actually buy the services that we have, but they don't understand the benefit until they're a couple of meetings in with us.
Mm,
You know, exactly what you said. You got to the end of that journey with that podcast producer or that podcast launch coach or whoever he was, and you're like, you know, it really wasn't exactly what I was thinking. It really wasn't. It was more generic. It wasn't really tailored for me. And I feel like, man, everything that we do, while we have a system and a process that we put people through, and we've got this great back end system to run it, we really do customize everything for every one of our customers, which is why we charge a premium for what we do.
mm,
But you don't, no one can appreciate that until they go through it and they say, holy shit, this guy really knows his shit. You know, he knows what he's doing.
So the absolute aim here, Doug, would be like, I would be sitting down and I would be like scribbling like crazy. Well, we type on a Google Doc, you know, it is 2022. I don't even know how to use it.
Yeah, you got a pencil out.
You know,
Nobody pencils anymore.
With my key. I'll be typing like crazy in a Google Doc as you taught. I'll be I'll be figuring out, okay, what is it that you do? How do you do the thing you do to get results better than somebody else? So then we have an answer to the question. Yes, there are lots of other podcast services out there and people will show you how to do it. But if you go with them, this is what may happen versus if you go with us. And actually be able to give credible arguments for why somebody would sign up with you. Yeah. I would also want to understand the audience, because for most people, like yourself included, there's two types of audience. There's the person who already knows that they want to start a podcast or they have a podcast already and they want to make it better. And then there's a person who doesn't have a podcast yet and doesn't know it would be a good idea for them. But if they did, they could absolutely smash it out of the park. So do you want to hit one or both of those? Because the marketing's different for both of them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we find that we work really well with that second market, the one that has no idea what strength that their podcast could actually produce or what results their podcast could actually produce for them. Oftentimes people are thinking, well, where does the money come from in podcasting? And it really isn't. In the Nice Guy community, you've heard me say this probably a million times. It's not from advertising and sponsorship. It's just not going to happen. It's called the guest to gold strategy, which is all about turning that guest seat into a referral source, turning that guest seat into clients, turning that guest seat into joint venture partnership, turning that guest seat into opportunity. And that is coming from not the community. And it's great to have a big community. And we do have a big community, but I don't ask my community to do much of anything for me. I ask them more for my guests to do stuff because I think you guys are the ones that bring the huge value to the podcast channel. Where we get our value from our show is by building the relationships like you and I are having an opportunity to do. And I'm learning all about what you do and start thinking, who in my world could Richard help? And how can I help Richard? And then how can Richard help me in return? But never, how can Richard help me, get him in the guest seat so we can figure out how he can help me? It never works that way because that's really a selfish dick attitude to take when it comes to, the relationship is everything for us.
One of the things I'd be positioning you against, like those cheaper ones, I've heard that people are selling, people advising people to do podcasts in a way where invite your ideal customer on and basically try to sell to them, and that'll get you clients. And I'm like, that's not gonna get you a long-lasting podcast. Surely.
It is ultimately where you can go with podcasting, but if your attitude is get the ideal guest into the ideal potential customer into the guest seat so that you can sell them, and you are salesy about it, it will never work, and it's a horrible way to try it. But the guest to client strategy is absolutely a strategy, and it's one that has made us a shit ton of money over the past 7 years or 5 years, because 2 years of swing and a miss at this many times. But it's not what I lead with, and it's not even really what my intention is. My intention is, how do I figure out what the best way to serve that guest and the best way for that guest to serve my community and my business? And that's a win for everybody, and that's how I always look at things.
No, absolutely, yeah. If you do enough good podcasts and have enough good conversations with people, a percentage of them are going to figure it out for themselves, aren't they? I would
absolutely think that way. So tell me a little bit about, before we wrap up, because I know that we've hit a lot of things, and when I'm so over time, as far as what I promised you, and I really appreciate you spending the extra moments sharing and kind of working through some of the issues that I have. I have a lot of issues. You'll see that soon. No big deal. Tell me a little bit about how the best way for our community to work with you based upon what the intention was to have you on the show today. So I know you have an online course or a program, or tell me a little bit about that so my community can get involved with that.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. So what I think is best is everybody who's got any kind of course, program, product, whatever, basically, presumably anyone listening to this and they want to sell more of it, is they need to have what I call an automated salesman. So an automated salesman, so imagine if you had like the best salesman in the world, or saleswoman. I don't want to be accused of being a sexist pig here, but a salesperson in the world, the best one ever, who works 24/7, who always says the right things, who always converts, anyone that should convert. And they work completely for free. That's essentially what a really, really good sales page is, written in the right way. So most people have got a sales page for their product, but they don't realize that it's kind of benign, kind of boring. And you post it on Facebook and someone goes, oh, I like that. How do I see more? And then they click your profile and go to your website and they're like, boring, don't really understand it, I'm not convinced. Or they see your ad on Facebook and they click and they go, boring, don't understand it, not convinced. Whereas if you do a sales page in the way I'm showing you, based on, I talked about before about all the sales letters I dug into and figured out like the connection starting with the premise. If you follow the steps that I show you in this process, you will have your own automated salesman that you can send people to, whether from organic or from ads. So there may be people listen to have tried ads before, whether like didn't work. Well, now it's a different experience because these ads actually have ROI, and you're like, okay, well, it's a cash machine where I put $1 in and get 2 out. I'll keep on filling it up, please. That's the idea behind this automated salesman, to give people that level of predictability behind their business, as opposed to simply posting only on organic and going, well, this month I made money, but last month I didn't, because you're never quite sure when it's coming in when you're posting organically. So if they go to magicsourcemarketing.com/TAS, stands for the automated salesman, they can get hold of this. It's a self-study course. It's only $27. I used to sell it for $997, and that's not one of those fake things. People actually paid that price, but I discounted it because I wanted as many people as possible to have access to this, just so they could, based on what we said before about, I want them to have access to me and get an idea of what I'm about, so they might convert to a higher level, to build up that level of trust. So if they go to that site now and buy the product, if they put in the coupon code Nice Guys, they can get $10 off. So for $17 instead of $27.
So you just lowered the $27 price to even
just in case I was too expensive. Yeah.
All right,
I wanted to kind of. I appreciate it. If people have spent the last, 30, 40 minutes listening to me now, they could be, it still blows my mind even today that people could be doing literally anything else in the world, including nothing, and they chose to listen to me and you. So I'm like, hey, I appreciate that. Have a $10 voucher.
They've showed up every week for the last, what's 52 weeks a year times 7, 350 plus weeks to hear that. So we know they're doing something right, and I know that having a guest like you on the show today, Richard, is absolutely a much better thing than listening to me and Strickland. So I appreciate you being on the show today.
Thank you.
So the website again, Nice Guy Community, is magicsaucemarketing.com/TAS, stands for the automated salesman or salesperson. And if you enter coupon code Nice Guys, it's all caps here, but I don't know if you need all caps, but just try it all caps. We'll be able to get that.
It converts it. Don't worry about that.
You see that it's automatically converting to Nice Guys any case. So it's lowering it from $27 down to $17. Richard, man, I so appreciate you going with the flow today and helping me work through one of my own problems, which is generally the mental gymnastics that I go through almost every episode with my guests. So thanks for being on the show, and thanks for sharing your wisdom and your 11-step sales letter with my community. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me on, Doug. I enjoyed it.
Hey, Nice Guy community, never underestimate the power of nice or the power of a good Nice Guys coupon code to reduce the cost of a program from $27 down to $17. Special thanks to our guest today, Richard. He will, all of his information, including access to his website, will be right there in the show notes. Steve O'Brien, go ahead and take us out of here.
Call 4242 DJ Doug and record an intro for the show to hear on a future episode. Say anything you want. Hell, take my job. I'm getting sick of these guys anyway. We still rolling? Psst, don't tell him I said that.